Good evening, citizens of Earth. 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 Citizens of
Firstly, can I welcome you all? I don't have to do all the pleasantries. That's Hanif's job. So I'd like to say thank you. It's been a long year. It's been an awfully hot few days. And I'm really grateful that you all took the time out to come. I hope the temperature rises in the right kind of way. We've got the aircon to keep you chilled. But hopefully the topic will be a little bit more interesting than that. I just wanted to start just to make a couple of opening remarks, which are really to remind you that you're in the School of Governance. Which is really a school that concerns itself about where power is located and how it's used and or abused, if you wanted a very rough definition. And part of the issue tonight, obviously we have one of the SRC members on the panel, and in the Chinese calendar this is the year of the sheep. And I think in South Africa it's been anything but. Using the stereotype version of sheep as animals with no brains who follow their leader and have no individualized identity at all. I think we would be the year, at least, of the student in South Africa. And I think the importance of the student protest is not merely for the victories it won, but I think for reminding us of how far we still have to go before the democratic project is fully realized. And I think stopping and consolidating your victories is one thing, but moving on to those greater victories is critical. And in that regard, I'm going to quote you some words that were said at the Catharata Foundation annual lecture a couple of weeks ago. I'm afraid I know I'm going to leave it for you to work out who it was if you weren't there. I know it wasn't written by a student leader because there's no hashtag in it. But the person said, in this regard, education is the most important societal investment that any nation can ever give to its youth. It is a powerful instrument to create a more equitable society and level the playing field. Without good public education, including free education up to a first degree, the dream of a more equal society will elude us forever. Access to higher education is too dependent on family background and the ability to either pay for yourself or raise a loan. Any ideas about who wrote that or said that? The Premier of Gauteng, a loyal ANC member, and I look forward to John responding to that one. He went on to say things which I think matter equally, and they can be reflected on also as we look at the student movement itself unfolding. But he said, strong interdependent and independent institutions play the role of protecting us, himself as a politician, against ourselves, against the excesses of power and the temptations to get institutions to serve those in power rather than the citizenry, the masses, us. State formation also entails building the capacity of the state to set and drive a common national agenda through a stable institutional and legal framework that is able to survive party factions and personalities. I would suggest this could probably only have been written by an ANC person in Gauteng. As South Africans, we must be worried when there are signs that some of the institutions of our democracy are deliberately being weakened so that they become dysfunctional. We must be scared when our law enforcement agencies cannot focus on fighting crime because of infighting. Our citizens must be vigilant. So he's calling on civil society, because that was part of his civil society role as a board member of Catharata Foundation, but calling on all of us to keep an eye on government for fairly obvious reasons. And he ends by saying a couple of things. We need strong institutions to endure and withstand contestation, because that contestation can lead to the ruin of the nation. That's quite strong language from someone who's just been elected with a reasonable majority. What is common among weak or failed states is their inability to manage diversity, plurality, and political contestation that protects the common interests and aspirations of the citizenry. I suspect the same might be said of many students in this university. And I'm reminded that we were told by one of the student leaders, wake up in an informal settlement or a township. Don't eat. Arrive at WITS, this incredibly middle-class institution, which most universities are, with very middle-class ways of behaving. Go to any of the graduations, see people in funny dresses, the men that is, running around looking very beautiful, I thought. But, you know, but don't eat until someone is willing to offer you something to fill your stomach, or you don't eat until you go home. And the point was, you have to make so many shifts in a day in what your identity is and where you are and who you are, that to talk about equality, to him at least, was entirely mythical. It simply made no sense because of the massive shift he had to make from home to Wits and back again every day, or at least 5 days a week. And I think as the debate unfolds, I hope some of these issues and the level of anxiety that is evident in the words of Premier David Makura echo through, because I think we are at a fairly important moment where these discussions need to be had in the open, involving everyone, and hopefully we'll get to a better place than we are now. But I'm going to shut up and leave the panel to give you the words of wisdom. But welcome to the School of Governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Everatt. Just to remind ourselves that you are at the Dialogue on Development and Rights, the Constitution, Human Rights and Transformation. And what has happened is that the organizers of this dialogue have presented the panelists with a series of questions, and I'll just summarize some of the questions for them to frame their talks around. So some of the questions they were given was, after 21 years of democracy, has the Constitution been successful in helping guide the transformation of South Africa? What have been the major wins? What have been the major challenges? Do we face a genuine constitutional and rights-based crisis, as the media have it, or are we facing a moral panic? Some of the questions that they had to look at when preparing their papers. Now, we are very pleased to have the shining new ambassador from the EU, Mr. Marcus Cornaro, who's recently been appointed to the position with the local delegation of the EU in October 2015. He's now the head of delegation. He was previously Deputy Director General for long title, Geographic Coordination in the European Commission's Directorate for Development Cooperation, also called DEVCO, where he was from 2012, and he oversaw all EU-funded development activities for partner countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And we'll get a few introductory remarks from Mr. Marcus Cornaro. Thank you.
Many thanks, Hanif, and also Professor Everatt for the possibility of speaking here. In fact, not even 2 months into my mandate, and just showing here my face and my name as the new European Union ambassador. Professor, this is my first presence here, but I would be delighted if we had a continuous partnership on governance with your renowned school here at Wits University. If I'm standing here today, maybe I take credit for 2 of those panels, the 6 panels you have at the back. The one is here showing the South African and European Union flag, which is the logo framing the European Union South Africa strategic partnership. Below it says, it's not readable but important, partners in progress. And I would like to stress both partners, and I would also like to stress progress. And then part of that progressive partnership is also that we have a regular EU human rights dialogue annually, and this is what brought our European Union Special Representative Stavros Lambrinidis here into town, who will interact with government and also civil society and many other stakeholders. And this is a good moment also for his voice to be heard on human rights in that important topic. Stavros, great to have you here on that occasion. The other logo you see over there is the European Union Inspiring Thinkers series, a proud product I'm inheriting, also determined to take forward. This is, I think, the 12th sort of lecture where we try to regroup broad intellectual debate around themes which are important both to Europe and to South Africa. And what better theme, I think, to have at this point in time than to look at the Constitution, human rights, and the power, and maybe also the hindrances towards transformation. And what better panel to have here. Before maybe I hand back to Hanif as your moderator, I had the privilege to meet him last week also for the first time in his capacity as the director of the Foundation for Human Rights. He started off the meeting with a joke. The joke was about academia, and the question was, why is always an academic debate so vociferous? Well, I scratched my head, I had no good answer, but his answer was, because there's nothing at stake. I found this, of course, unfair, and I think the panel has a good occasion today to test him wrong, because there could not be much more at stake than looking at the Constitution, human rights, and transformation. And what a wonderful panel to have, and I'm great to be here together with you. Thanks.